and share my screen. All right. Can everybody see my slides? Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so hi. As I mentioned, I'm Julia. This is the fourth workshop in a series of workshops that we're doing on evidence synthesis in the social sciences. To my knowledge, as I was saying a little bit ago, this is the first time that kind of formalized supports have been offered here at Rutgers for evidence synthesis support. So I'm really appreciative of you all being here because it's helping me and it's helping my profession be better supporters of your evidence synthesis projects as well. I love learning goals. So we're going to start our session today with some learning goals. By the end of today, you should be able to articulate the building blocks of an advanced search strategy. You should be able to build an advanced search strategy, or, if you're not quite there yet, be a bit closer to building one by the end of today, and be able to recognize transparent and comprehensive search strategies and know why those are important to a quality review. So how do those feel to everybody? Do those feel manageable? Feel like what you were hoping to tackle today? Awesome. I want to start out the way I start out with every workshop, which is just to tell you that I'm here to support beyond today as well. You can always email me, which I think many of you have, but just to reiterate, you can always email me if you have questions, and you can also book appointments with me. So those are 30-minute appointments, sometimes 45, depending on the time of year. And those are just our chance to really dig deep into the things that you're working on and allow you to kind of give me more information so we can kind of specialize my supports towards your particular needs. So I know many of you have already done that with me, and I think hopefully they've been useful and will continue to be useful. So highly recommend booking those beyond today as well. The other big support that I want to kind of share with you is the library guide that I've put together for this topic. It's called the Evidence Synthesis in the Social Sciences Guide. And let me drop the link in the chat. And it is basically a step-by-step guide of both I'll just open this actually, of both the process of doing a systematic review and the process of doing a scoping review. There's also guidance on types of reviews, how to tell the difference between types of reviews, how to scope what review might be best for your topic. There's a huge amount of resources, my little library I put together, discussions of how I can help you, and all the recordings and all of the slides for these workshops live in this guide as well. So it's hopefully very comprehensive, and I'm trying to add to it all the time. A couple weeks ago, I went to oh, thanks, Kristen. I'm glad it's been useful. A couple weeks ago, I went to a week-long training that was just for librarians outside the health sciences, helping with systematic reviews. And so as I was taking that, I was adding things to this. So I'm hoping that it'll kind of be a living thing as we gain more insights into what best practice looks like in the social sciences for these evidence synthesis reviews. All right. Can everybody see the slides okay if I do not put them in presentation mode? Okay, great. I'm going to be we're going to have a little collaborative Google Doc situation going on today. So I want to make sure everybody can see, but that I can switch tabs. So if anything doesn't feel accessible at any point, just let me know. Okay, so let's talk about search strategies. Yay. Search strategies are my favorite thing ever. They're they are my favorite part of the systematic review process. And so I'm really excited to get to talk to y'all about this today because it's kind of like a treasure hunt, and it's kind of like a weirdly computer science-y, but also definitely an art form. It helps definitely to give your ego a little bit of a check when you're feeling particularly, strong and powerful. It tends to knock you down a peg, which in my opinion, is healthy. So they're really cool. They're really fun, in my opinion. Again, I'm a librarian though, but I just like to preface that they're also like very frustrating. And so, beyond today, if you're feeling that frustration, it's normal. I feel it every time I write one. And just growing that skill and that sort of like mental flexibility to experience the trial and error is like part of this process as well. But just to make sure we're all on the same page, what is a search strategy? So a search strategy is a series of words and phrases and subjects, all arranged around a certain topic or research question, that when they're combined with the syntax of a particular database and punctuation that is commonly obeyed by search engines, allows a researcher to find materials on their research area to a very comprehensive and specific end. So that probably feels pretty abstract to everyone right now. And, some of those things might make sense in this description. But this is kind of a common way of looking at a search strategy in a more theoretical view, I guess I would say. To talk about search strategies in relation to systematic and scoping reviews, along with other review types. I know Natalie's playing with the idea of an interpretive review right now. So we've got some other review types I know people are interested in. In relation to all of those review types, a search strategy, its purpose is really to be as reproducible and as comprehensive as possible. The reason for this is that when you write a systematic review or a scoping review, the point of those search strategies is to find every single resource that possibly exists on your topic, right? And you want that comprehensiveness to kind of have the utmost certainty that it can when you go to publish your paper. So that if someone were to take your search strategy and copy and paste it into the same database as you said you put it, they would get the same results and would therefore hopefully come to the same conclusions about the evidence that you are putting forward in your review. So, the idea is that we're accessing every source available on a topic. And we're also saying, we think we found everything with this strategy. And hopefully, people can find it as well. One thing that, I mentioned, I just went to this training a couple weeks ago. One thing that I really found super useful that I hadn't done before that is to find a couple of gold standard or seed articles that you can use to test your search against. So what I mean by that is find an article, or, if you're a subject matter expert in what you're doing your review in, think of an article that you would definitely be including in the review and use that as the example that you will try to test your search against, meaning that you will try to make sure that your search captures that article, thereby kind of guaranteeing that the search terms that you're using and the way that you've organized your search is getting at what you want it to get at, basically. And we're going to practice that today too. So just so you can kind of see that in action. Hopefully, if I write a good enough strategy, then it will capture it. Let's talk a little bit about the process of searching. So if you've watched the recordings of my other workshops or you've been to them, you've probably recognized this slide and some of the material I've talked about so far. Searching is very iterative, right? It's, I think, probably completely improbable, if not impossible, for you to write the perfect search strategy on your first go and then be like, this is it, publish time, it's a very iterative process, right? By searching, you're going to see what's out there. And by seeing what's out there, you're probably going to add terms. Or you might put your search strategy in and it misses the mark. And you're not getting anything you thought you were going to get. So we kind of have this process of building the strategy, as you see on this slide. And then you search, and then you learn, and then you adjust, and then you search again. So that's where that like mental flexibility, frustration threshold comes into play. I often say like there aren't a lot of times we're all, experts in our fields, and it's not often as established academics and as adults that we get to be humbled in the way that searching sometimes humbles you. And so I think that is important though, because if you can get to that point of comprehensiveness and that point of certainty, it's usually because you've really worked to get there, and can say that you've found everything that you need to find. Where to search. This also is probably familiar to some of you, this slide, but just to kind of reiterate. So your review, any type of review, should look at least two databases, hopefully more though. Again, you want to be as comprehensive as possible. So, however many that you think will take to find all of the articles that are out there. This should include subject-specific databases. Can folks put in the chat some subject-specific databases that they're aware of or that they use? And I'm kind of giving you a, yes, Eric. Yeah, I love Eric. There's a little bit of a hint on the, several hints on the side there. PsycInfo, yeah. In the social sciences, PsycInfo is a very big one. PubMed would be one, which I screenshotted here. We also have things like, Web of Science. So Web of Science is more of an interdisciplinary database, but is, definitely super comprehensive, super usable for a review. But PsycInfo, we often see like ProQuest Social Science Premium, or EBSCO has EconLit, and they have, what else do they have? That's subjects, Family and Society Studies. So these are databases that are like very focused in on a topic, right? Very focused in on a disciplinary area. So it's really important to grab those, right? Because they're going to index the journals that are kind of most likely to be publishing papers in the topic that you're looking for. But then you also want to add on some interdisciplinary databases. These are going to be things that are not particularly focused on one disciplinary area, but rather index from journals all over the place. Just making sure I'm keeping up with the chat. Yes, Elisa, yeah, I will share the slides. Usually what I do is I will email everyone after the fact, and I'll tell you the link to the slides and the recording. Yeah. So this is like Web of Science, Scopus, Google Scholar could be considered an interdisciplinary database. Yeah, Natalie.
So I was looking at some of the discipline-specific databases that you recommended, and I noticed that some of them have like EBSCO in parentheses, or some have like ProQuest in parentheses. So if you pick two that both have like EBSCO behind them, and if you searched in one, if they're both EBSCO, would searching in one gather all the articles, or is it like you still have to search in each respective database, even though they're held under the parent like umbrella database?
Yes, that is a really good question. Yeah, so EBSCO or ProQuest, those are the platforms which the databases are hosted on. So in most cases, you would have to search, like if you were going to search EBSCO EconLit and EBSCO Family and Society Studies Worldwide, let's say, you would have to search in both. There might be some overlap in the journals that they're indexing, but they wouldn't be the same search. Now that there becomes a caveat to that, in that EBSCO and ProQuest, some of them have kind of like umbrella databases that do a big search that are what I wouldn't consider to be interdisciplinary database, or I wouldn't consider to be like subject specific databases. I would consider them to be interdisciplinary databases. So for EBSCO, just keeping with that example, that would be their Academic Search Premier database. So that Academic Search Premier database would search EconLit and family and society studies worldwide, and like, you know, the STEM collections and the, right? So that is an option, but then you're going to get a lot more stuff that might not be relevant. But you could do it as like an interdisciplinary database. Yeah. So one thing that I usually do is I'll just Google, like, because all of this information on these databases is out there, but it's like sometimes hard to find from the website. So I'll just Google like EBSCO, Academic Search Premier, databases included, you know, and I'll just like double check like everything that's in there is in there that I want. Or I'll check like, you know, journals indexed by Family and Society Studies Worldwide, journals indexed by EconLit, and just like double check the amount of overlap, you know, something like that. Yeah, really good question. They don't make it easy with all of the different platforms, and we will talk more about ways that it makes it hard in a bit. But yeah, basically the subject specific stuff becomes more, you know, maybe your starter databases, but you want to add those interdisciplinary ones to make sure that you're catching things that might have been published outside of your discipline, but for some reason would be relevant to you. So those are like Web of Science, Scopus. I would skip Google Scholar simply because algorithmically, we don't really know how Google Scholar ranks things, and it ranks them different for different people, right? So because it's sort of like a regular Google search where the stuff that it thinks is more relevant to you is going to come to the top. So we try to skip that because it makes reproducibility difficult. All right, questions? Hi, Lorraine. All right, so let's go ahead and start to talk about the building blocks of a search. So I have a question for everyone. When you search in a database, do you use any search techniques to find what you need? And if so, what are they? Yeah, Elisa, and or asterisk or truncation symbol. Yes, excellent. Other folks using anything? That's pretty much where when I'm just doing a quick like casual search, that's what I use, you know, Boolean operators, which are those ands and those ors, and then the truncation symbol, the asterisk. Anybody use like parentheses or quotation marks? People using those? A couple people, Jeannie, yeah. There's no like wrong place to be. This is just sort of for me to understand, like, you know, what people are like feeling and what they're maybe not feeling. Yeah, Lorraine says yes. Yeah, Sage says, I usually limit results to the last X amount of years unless I'm looking for foundational things. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That is definitely an option. So that's using the filters that are available in the database to limit by year. Definitely a trick. Cool, awesome. Thanks for sharing, everybody. So here is my kind of list of search building blocks. I have keywords, subject headings, Boolean operators, punctuation, which are parentheses, asterisks, quotation marks. And then I have two on the end that might be slightly less familiar to everyone, which is completely okay. They are field codes and proximity operators. So we're going to kind of go through each of these elements. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of put, as we kind of go through each element, we're going to create a strategy together in a Google Doc that we will then try to run in a database. Okay. So here is our question, our example search question that we are going to write a strategy for. How effective are trauma-informed care practices in improving the behavioral health outcomes of children in foster care? So let's pretend we're writing a review on that topic. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to break that down into keywords. As you're probably aware, if we type this in, if we just copied and pasted this and put it in a database, it would not yield the results that would give us a quality review, right? Because databases don't really understand context the way humans do, right? So this database would pull, the word effective and give us articles that just have the word effective, or pull the word health and give us articles that just have the word health, rather than putting these words together in a meaningful way that allows us to get articles that, look at our topic specifically. So the first thing that we kind of can do, and I'm sure a lot of you are doing this kind of inherently, is to break things down into keywords. So we're going to take our, sentence long research question, and I kind of identified 3 conceptual keywords or phrases that I think really get at our review topic. So can anybody tell me if you would hazard a guess at what those would be? There's a little bit of a tricky element here. So if anyone wants just to shout out one in the chat, or try your hand at all 3. Yes, trauma-informed, definitely. Excellent. Elisa and Lorraine. And then I see behavioral health and foster care. Yes, children, foster care. Yes, Jeannie, you killed it. You did it. Yeah, so trauma-informed, behavioral health, and foster care are the 3 that I came up with. Oops. The reason that I didn't add in children is because if we are looking at foster care, we're going to be looking at the population that foster care affects, which is, people under 18. So initially, so I practiced this, I wrote a search myself and I put children in there, and it was pulling up all these articles that had the word children, but that I was realizing that it was leaving out it was leaving out articles that might have not necessarily mentioned the population affected, because I used the word children. Yeah. So Elisa says, is there something significant about 3 search terms? Will it depend on topic or question, or aim for 3 to start? It depends on the topic or question. This was just 3. So I was trying to help y'all by having just categories ready to go. Yeah, great question. So yeah, anyway, the children thing. So that's something if we had done this, if you had done this yourself, that's one of those times when you would have probably included children in the search, a lot of you, and then learned from that and then taken it out, right? So I kind of sped up the process for us today, just so we could see maybe a little bit more exact search strategy. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to brainstorm related phrases and terms and synonyms for our keywords. The reason that it's important to do this is that the databases do not find articles that have words with the same meaning as the ones we typed in. It only finds the words that we typed in, right? So in our search, if we just searched foster care, we're going to miss all of the articles in which our authors used the term child welfare, maybe, right? So, or, behavioral health as opposed to a different similarly meaning word, right? So it's really important to think of as many related terms and phrases as we can, along with different variations of the same word. So I'm going to pop our Google Doc in the chat and we're going to brainstorm together. I think everybody should have edit access here. But you can see that I've basically done one column of, done kind of one keyword for us, right? And if you can see here, I've added a couple of different spellings or iterations of the same word. So I've got trauma-informed with a dash, and I've got trauma-informed with a space, because both of those might come up. It gets dicey when you use the word color or behavior, which is in our search, because in places that aren't in the US that speak English and write in English, they might spell those words with a U, right? And so you might miss all these articles that are spelled with a U that are being left out. So we really have to be super comprehensive. So let's take a minute to just brainstorm. Put this in the chat. Brainstorm some synonyms, related phrases, alternate spellings of our three key concepts. And if you have more for trauma informed, please, by all means, add those as well. I see somebody's in there. Mental health, very good. I love seeing what people show up as. I see anonymous blobfish, anonymous chinchilla. Those are very cute. That one in there. Sometimes this is where I use Google too. Like I'll just be like, synonyms for behavioral health, right? Like that's completely valid. You know, Google is a tool and it definitely can help us in this sense. Yeah, emotional health, that might be a good one. Might look up like foster care. Behavior problems, yes. Out of home care, yeah, excellent, yes. These are great. Give it just another minute. Guardianship, yeah, excellent. Excellent, everybody. Yeah, well-being. Yes, whoever just wrote behavioral health with a U, yeah, definitely that I would add that in there. And we'll do behavior problems with a U too. Awesome. So now we have this really nice list, right? And we could probably, oh, Lorraine, no problem at all. Yeah, feel free to, if folks are not able to add to the Google Doc, that is completely okay. I know it's a weird kind of time of day to all be working on a Google Doc together. So if you have to do other things, that's completely understandable. So yeah, so that's a really nice list. Generally, when you're like on a team doing a review, you would all brainstorm together and then you would like test it out. And then you would come back and you would say, oh, I saw this word that was in there a lot. Let's add it to our search, you know. So this, again, this list would probably be a bit more extensive than what we have right now. But I think to start, this is like a really excellent list. So our next task is to establish subject headings. Actually, before we do that, I want to show you a quick kind of like snapshot of what this looks like without subject headings. So this is a search strategy for a Web of Science search. And it doesn't have, Web of Science doesn't have subject headings, which is why they're not in this example. So I just wanted to show you like what this looks like when you put all of your synonyms together, right? So this was a, they're doing a scoping review, I think, on like farmers organizations and small scale producers, impacts on the environment. And so we can see like they've got one category for all of the like farmer words. We've got one category for like all of the words for like farming cooperatives. And then we have all of the words for the area of the world that they're looking at, right? So this is like just, I think, a nice example of how that all kind of fits together with your keywords. There's probably some things in here that look familiar, look unfamiliar. Rest assured, we're going to cover all of the little elements in this, but I just wanted to kind of give you like a snapshot of what the keywords look like in an actual strategy you would see in a paper. But let's talk subject headings. So subject headings are another way to search for articles that are outside of kind of the natural language keywords that we just generated. Subject headings are applied to an article or a resource by the database to categorize them the same way that you would, put different books into different shelves of different genres in a bookstore, right? It's important to search both the subject headings and the natural language keywords for an article if subject headings are available. Some databases don't have them. Why do y'all think it might be advantageous and in the best interest of comprehensiveness to search both those natural language keywords and the subject headings? So it's kind of twofold. And I think like one reason is because natural language keywords don't capture everything. And the other reason is that subject headings don't capture everything. So let's start with the subject headings don't capture everything argument. If someone is applying categories to a article, and by someone, I mean either a human being or a lot of databases use AI now, there's a margin of error there, right? Like it's possible that someone who is applying categories to an article maybe missed one, right? And if you're just searching subject headings, you're going to miss that article if somebody missed it, right? So applying the natural language keywords that reflect what's actually in the article is going to compensate for that. On the flip side, even if you've brainstormed the most comprehensive set of natural language keywords, maybe there's one article out there that doesn't use any of them, but still reflects your topic. And that's when the subject headings come into play, because hopefully and ideally, the folks at the database who are indexing those articles will have applied those subject headings. So it's another kind of attempt at 100% comprehensiveness, the best that we can within the parameters of the databases that we all search. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. So this example is another screenshot of a search strategy here, and you can see I've kind of circled this first line. This search strategy is from PsycInfo, and PsycInfo is actually where we're going to search today. And this is PsycInfo's notation for a subject heading. So it's got this little EXP, which I'll explain in a minute. And then everything that is a subject heading in PsycInfo ends with a backslash. So that's how you know that like that's a subject heading that's being searched. PsycInfo has a subject heading called post-harvest losses, and they are searching that. That makes sense to everybody so far? Okay. So let's return to our worksheet here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this search for us, I think, just to make sure that we all stay on the same page, because this can be like a slightly complicated process if you've never done it before. So I am going to pretend that for my topic, my first database is PsycInfo. How comfortable do people feel with PsycInfo? I know we're all social sciencey people, so I thought that was a pretty good one to start with. Cool, awesome. The reason I chose it too is because it's got all of our search results up here at the top, which will be really convenient when we're like talking through things here in a bit. Okay, so to find subject headings that match your topic, you are going to want to make sure that this little map term to subject heading thing is clicked here. It varies based on the database where that subject heading thesaurus lives, but PsycInfo makes it really easy for you in that it just is clicked right in the main search interface. Other databases you have to just to show you the difference. In Social Science Premium, which is a ProQuest product, you have to click on thesaurus up here and then choose a thesaurus that you want to use, and then choose your subject headings from there. There's different thesauri, obviously, in ProQuest. So I always say I use the ProQuest thesaurus because that will be the ProQuest indexers that are, applying to any article that is indexed by ProQuest rather than a discipline-specific one, if that makes sense. Anyway, so that's just to show you there's different places to find the subject headings in different databases. But what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and just use my 3 key concepts, and I'm going to search them, and I'm going to see what subject headings match up with what I've searched. So let's start with trauma-informed care. And there we see there is a trauma-informed care subject heading, which is perfect. You can even click on it to see how it fits in the hierarchy of a thesaurus. So the way that these subject headings work is that they're kind of hierarchical. So for instance, a broader term than trauma-informed care, as we can see, is treatment. There are related terms like childhood adversity, post-traumatic stress, trauma screening, right? So it shows you where things fit in the hierarchy, which can help you kind of identify other related terms. There's also scope notes, which tell you why or how this this specific subject heading gets applied, right? So services or approaches that take into account knowledge about trauma, et cetera, et cetera. That's why someone would apply this as if an article talked about that. Yes, Elisa, if you find the keyword indexed as a subject heading, does that mean you can ignore all those terms below? Yes, excellent question. Yes, so I would say you can ignore all the terms below if you click on this little explode. That explode captures the heading that you chose plus all of the headings below it, which is a really nice way to again, kind of guarantee that comprehensiveness. So if we go back to our slides, you'll see in the example here, there's a little EXP next to the subject heading. That EXP is for explode. So basically when this group searched post-harvest losses, they also searched everything nested underneath post-harvest losses. So just make sure that little explode is clicked, and then we're just going to click continue. And then you can see it shows up in our search history here. So I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to pop it in our little document here. And the reason that I'm doing that is just to make sure, I have a slide at the end of the workshop about this, but document everything, right? So like, I know that this is showing up on our search results here, but I always put everything in a separate place because stuff happens. You might lose your search, maybe you exit out of the tab accidentally. You want to make sure you have all of this. So I always pop it in a particular document, usually a collaborative one, so that everyone can kind of see what everyone else is doing. Let's do behavioral health. All right, and we see healthcare psychology is what comes up, which sounds interesting to me. And I'm just going to take a look at the scope note. Field of psychology that looks at how biological, behavioral, and social factors influence decisions in the healthcare system. I'm going to go back. I'm going to click on the subject heading. And then I see, in the used for category, behavioral health and healthcare psychology are used interchangeably, which is why that came up. So I'm just going to click explode again, click continue. And I'm going to pop that one in my document too. And then foster care. And foster care as a subject heading. Awesome. All right, so now we've got all three of our subject headings right there. Oops. This one was a pretty straightforward set of subject headings to find. Sometimes like I have to find like 80,000 subject headings and it can be quite a lot. But this one's pretty manageable. Does everybody feel pretty comfy with like the idea of subject headings and how to look for them and how to include them? Feeling all right? Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. So now we've got our keywords, we've got our synonyms and related phrases, and we've got our subject headings. So now we have every different type of way to say the concepts of our research question. And that part is done. Yay. And I see a chat. Yes, Jeannie. So you can add subject headings for each database you're using. Yeah. So some databases don't have subject headings. Web of Science being like one that comes to mind. But for every other one, yeah, there are subject headings with thesauri that you go and look through and add. Yeah. All right. Next stop is connecting all of this together. And the way that we do that is with Boolean operators. So Boolean operators are 3 words. I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. They are the word and, the word or, and the word not. The word and tells the database, I want you to find an article with this word and this word, not one or the other. The word or tells the database, you can find either word, doesn't have to be both. And the word not says, don't pull up articles that have this word in them. One thing I'll say about using the not operator in a systematic or a scoping review is, if you can avoid it, I would. The reason for that being, these are really powerful. And so there might be an article out there that you want to include. And if you type not and a word, it'll get popped out, if that word is in that article anywhere. So again, for comprehensiveness sake, I would say try to avoid the not operator if you can. But and or are the bread and butter of the search. So we're going to start putting things together with them. So I'm going to go back to our little document here. And I'm going to start basically by connecting each keyword and its related phrases together. And so, for instance, trauma informed, and then trauma informed, on and on and on. And I'm going to connect those with an or, right? And can anybody tell me why I would use an or in this scenario instead of an and? Yes, they're synonymous, right? So we don't need to find all of those different ways of saying trauma informed. We just need to find one, right? So since y'all have edit access, can you help me out? And can we add ors in between all of our different synonyms here? Excellent, thank you. All right, and then while we're doing that, we need another Boolean operator to add in between each different concept, right? We don't want to use or, because then we would find only one of our concepts instead of all three. So we want to use and, right? So we're going to put an and in between trauma and behavioral health, and an and in between. Oh, sorry, I just messed up someone's very lovely. That down there. So now basically we're telling the database, I want you to find one way of saying trauma informed, plus one way of saying behavioral health, plus one way of saying foster care, right? So we're mixing and matching those terms, again, guaranteeing a much wider set of comprehensiveness than we would if we just searched 1 + 1 + 1. All right, excellent. I'm just going to space this out a little bit. I think we need to add. Awesome. All right. So now we've got our little search strategy with our Boolean operators. The next thing we're going to do is talk about proximity operators, which I think is probably the first building block that folks maybe don't have familiarity with. Proximity searching is basically an operator that allows you to control how concepts, how close they are to one another in a particular article, therefore kind of like not just finding things that are right next to each other in an article. For instance, you know, if you want to define like this example here in the table on the slides is bipolar within 2 words of disorder, right? So so it's a way of kind of, again, maximizing the chances that you're going to find articles that maybe don't have 2 words right next to each other in the way they would in a traditional search, but kind of allow you to expand the relevance of your terms kind of beyond just the traditional and ors. So proximity operators are one of the trickiest things to use in that every database has a different way of doing them. They all like conceptually work the same way, but they all have different ways of indicating the operator. So in ProQuest, or I'm sorry, PsycInfo, we have to use ADJ with the number of words. So one thing I'll say about the number of words is that it's this is like definitely a trial and error point to see like how sensitive you want your search to be. So like I would start on the farther end, right? I'd start with like maybe ADJ5. So 1 word within 5 words of another word. And then I'll go back and try 4, and then I'll go back and try 3. And then once it gets to a point where I'm seeing a lot of things that are very relevant, then I kind of know, okay, this is kind of the sweet spot, right? So I don't want to add too many to our search and have people feel like overwhelmed, but I think there are like a couple places where I could see adding them. One is with the phrase child welfare. And another is probably with the words foster care. So let's try it. Again, I'm going to start kind of on the wider end of things. So I'm going to start, I'll do 4. So ADJ4. So now I'm basically saying I need to find the word care within 4 words of the word foster. And then again, I need to find the word child within 4 words of the word welfare. But we could add many more, right? We could add like 1 in each of these. We could add some in behavioral health. If I were writing a strategy for someone's review, I probably would do that. If we go back to our examples here, there's a good example. We can use this one, that's okay. So like we can see that basically, so they're using Web of Science, and Web of Science uses the near operator. So you can see that they're basically saying any of these words within 0 words of any of these words, which is a very specific strategy and kind of a nice example of one that is using a proximity operator for a lot of different terms. Hold on one second, my cat is screaming. Apologies. Natalie.
Thank you. I'm glad that you went back to this one because it caught my eye and I wasn't sure earlier. So why do they break out 1 and 2? Why not just add all the terms into one? If it's 1, like in step 3, it's 1 or 2. Why not just merge them all into one long string?
I think because of that proximity operator. So do you see how there's a set of parentheses around all of 1? And then there's 2, wish I could highlight this. Actually, let me go to the actual. So these are their search strategies. Where's Web of Science? Okay, so do you see how there's a set of parentheses here that goes all the way to here? And then there's a second set of parentheses here with the operator in between them. So I think they broke, I can't speak for the people who wrote the strategy, but I think they broke this from this just to delineate that this segment is all together being operated on by a proximity operator, and this segment is not. You could, I mean, it's not incorrect to put them all together. You could. And there's a slide at the end about like writing these and how to write them and how it's very arbitrary how people write them, so that was a really good question. But yeah, I think a lot of times people separate things out to make it just easier for people to see like how they did things for want of a better explanation. But yeah, does that make sense? Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome question. Excellent question. Okay, so that's proximity operators, and how do people feel about that? I know that can be like a tricky one, but that one is like definitely a practice one. So just do like basic searches and use your proximity operators and just like see how the results change. And it becomes more intuitive with time. Yeah. All right. Phrase to tell the database that phrase should be considered in its entirety rather than in its pieces, right? So if we go to our example, we have all these phrases, right? We have trauma informed, we have behavioral health, we have out of home care. If we were to skip putting quotation marks around those, we would basically be telling the database, like, I need articles with the word trauma or the word informed. I need articles with the word behavioral or the word health rather than the phrase. So with that, let's go to town and put parentheses, or I'm sorry, not parentheses, quotation marks everywhere that we need quotation marks in our search strategy. There's a lot in this. I picked this topic because I thought it would allow for maximum practice with a lot of these things. All right, I think we've got all of them, right? Yeah. I think we're missing one on out of home placements. Oops, anonymous badger already is on it. Okay. All right, awesome. Cool. So that's quotation marks. Then we have parentheses. So the parentheses are kind of like for some people, this explanation really resonates, and for other people, it sends them like screaming to the hills. But it's sort of like order of operations in high school math. So you know how when you were in algebra and there were parentheses around like A plus B, and then there was a C outside, times C, but it was outside the parentheses. You knew that inside the parentheses was its own unique expression, right? You had to do that A plus B before you could do anything else. That is very similar to how search engines interpret parentheses. So for instance, we might want to put parentheses. We definitely want to put parentheses around each concept. So each concept gets its own set of parentheses, right? Because we want to tell the search engine like this is one distinct expression. But I would also say we could put them around our proximity operators too. And then another set, around the whole thing. Some databases interpret these proximity expressions just fine without a second set of parentheses, but I always do it just in case, just to make sure that the database treats it as its own complete expression within that larger expression. Questions about parentheses? Okay, I think people are adding. Awesome, thank you. Everyone's adding things, yay. All right, awesome. And then lastly, we have truncation symbols. So most often the truncation symbol we see is the asterisk. And these tell the database to search for whatever's typed and then fill in the blank for the asterisk. So for instance, if we're looking at trauma, if you did TRAUM with an asterisk, it would pull up the word trauma, but it would pull up traumas, traumatic, et cetera, et cetera. Some databases use different truncation symbols besides the asterisk. I'm trying to think of, I think PubMed uses different ones, but I would just always check like the help or just even Google like PubMed truncation, just to make sure you know what which one it is. Oh, they do use an asterisk. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so that's just a little caveat there to just double check that you know which one you're going to be using in which database. All right, so let's add some truncation here. We're running a little low on time, so I just want to make sure that we're just doing these things, not spending too long on the little nitty-gritty things. So I might add one to child, right? To make sure that we capture like children, childhood, all of those words. I might add one to guardian here, so that way we get the word guardian or the word guardianship. I might add some up here to like the trauma, and just like in the example, for right now, I'm going to leave that out just for time's sake, but you could do that. You could always experiment with it and then take it out, again, trial and error. But that's truncation. All right. The last thing we're going to do before we like actually search this is we're going to add in our subject headings to our search. So all I'm going to do that is I'm just going to take them and pop them into each concept with an or. They don't need quotation marks because they have the EXP in front of them. And so the database, and they end with the backslash, so the database recognizes them as a subject heading. All right, and that's a relatively complete search strategy right there. How does that feel to everybody? Pretty good. So this is what I do every time. I write it out in a Google Doc so I know where it is and how to adjust it. And then I paste it into the database that I'm using. That just makes it easier if I want to tweak things. I can see the whole thing. I can adjust it. I can have different versions of it to see what I tried before, et cetera, et cetera. So let's try it. I'm going to go ahead and pop it into PsycInfo here. Uh-oh. Oh, shoot. Okay, this is good. I'm actually glad this happened. So one thing to note about PsycInfo in particular, if you see up here, it says that our search includes unsupported characters. That's because when you paste from Google Docs and or Word, it thinks that these quotation marks are different than the quotation marks in PsycInfo. There's actually a whole paper a librarian wrote about it, how databases treat curly quotation marks different than straight quotation marks, which is infuriating. But we will fix it. Hold on. Let's try that. That might not work. Okay, yeah, I have to do them manually, which is a bummer, but that's okay. We will live.
Sorry, what was it was the quotation marks?
So
Okay.
do you see, was that Kristen? Yeah, that was Kristen.
Yeah.
So do you see how, as I'm changing them, they're changing from this let me zoom in a little. They're changing from this straight little buddy to this curly little buddy here. So the database doesn't think that this curly little guy is a quotation mark. So you have to change them all. Could you change the font? I've tried that before, Sage. I think it's just a copy paste problem. If you don't type it all in, it's super frustrating. But as I'm typing, does anybody have questions about anything related to these curly question marks or curly quotation marks or not? I don't think I have the patience for a system. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why doing them in teams is good, because the threshold for frustration is very real. And when you can do it all together, it is a lot more helpful. Systematically infuriating.
This is a silly question, but how did you make the search window large?
Oh, yeah, I just there's this little 2-line thing here. If you pull it down, it expands it however you like.
This is an even sillier question. How are you changing the quotation marks?
Oh, so when I pasted it, they looked a certain way, but now all I'm doing is typing a quotation mark in.
Oh, because okay, got it.
Yeah, it's so silly. It's just so I don't know if you've noticed noticed this so far, but basically a lot of the things that I've done so far is explain the qualms or the weird little bugs with computer science and how we have to navigate them to be able to find articles. For instance, curly quotation marks, or the fact that, you've got to put everything in parentheses like you're in high school math, or, that there's 8 different ways to say the same thing, and the database can only find one of them unless you type them all in.
So you're just retyping the quotations. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, which is why this is taking forever. Okay, I think I'm done. I don't see any more curlies. I'm really glad that happened though, because that's infuriating if you can't figure out why it's doing that. But anyway, let's search. Let me go back to 0 here. This is a longer search, so it'll probably take a little bit. Here we go. And then you see we've got 149. So, a very low number, Elise. That's, yeah, I know. It's pretty amazing, right? It goes from, look how many subject heading, look how many results are just in healthcare psychology, 14,000. But when we take it to all three of those concepts combined together in all their different ways, it's only 149, right? And then we see pretty good stuff here. One thing I'll point out is the field code. So this .mp, we see this pretty much everywhere. So PsycInfo has applied that field code, and PsycInfo is nice because it tells you what the field code means. So it tells you basically it's searching the words that you typed in the title, the abstract, the heading word, the table of contents, the key concepts, the original title, test and measures, and the mesh word. We could change this by copying and pasting, and we could do .ti, which would tell the database to only search the title. We could do I think it's AD, which would tell the database to only search the abstract. But basically this allows for even more control, right? So just to show you a slide on this, it's allowing you to search only specific elements. So we've got the .mp, which I would keep it on the .mp. Oh, Kristen, you got 156.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I missed like a quote, and so maybe I took it off, or I don't know, something happened.
Maybe. This is like another thing where like as a team, you all run them together and you make sure everybody's got the same results. Because yeah, that's like another thing, you know, that we can try to troubleshoot. My partner's a physicist, but he does most of his work in the kind of like computer science realm, like very computational. So he wrote a program for me to be able to see the difference between two search strategies, so I don't have to look at them and figure them out. And it's always like a letter or a missing piece of punctuation, which is so frustrating. But yeah, another like troubleshooting thing. So I've got a screenshot here of a PsycInfo field code, right? So the .mp we just looked at. This is what it looks like in ProQuest though. Let me make this bigger. So they have like a drop down and you can kind of choose where you want to search. And so the advantage is, you know, you're going to get more specific results because you are searching only the key elements of the article, right? Rather than the full text. So that's another thing to trial and error, right? You know, see how things look with different field codes, but I wouldn't get too specific because then you're going to miss probably some things, right? All right. Yes, Elisa, that's a great question. So I'm going to table that question just because we've got a slide a bit later on translation. Yeah, but that's an excellent question. What I want to do right now, though, is just test our strategy with a seed article that I picked earlier. So all I'm going to do here is I found this article. It's called Effectiveness of Trauma-Informed Care Initiatives in a State Child Welfare System. I'm just going to copy the title and I'm going to paste it in PsycInfo with quotes, right? So it finds it exactly. Oh no, see, I forgot to unclick the map term to subject heading. So it's trying to find subject headings for me. Okay, so now we know it's in PsycInfo, right? PsycInfo has indexed this article because we got one result. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the database that I want to find the results of my fourth search, which is our search string, not the results of our fifth search, which is just that one article. And ideally, if my search picked up that article, this number on our sixth search will drop from 149 to 148. Kind of showing to us that that article was in our original results. Yay! Hooray! So that means that our search has picked up at least one seed article. We'd probably have a few, but that's awesome. That's great news. Good brainstorming, everyone. Yay. All right, so we wrote a search strategy. That's super exciting, and it was moderately successful at the very least. Again, there'd probably be a lot more tweaking and iteration, but now hopefully you kind of see how the process goes about. And now let's talk about translation. So with Elisa's excellent segue, let's talk about repeating this process in other databases. So Elisa, to your question, are we using the same search terms? I would use all the same keywords because those are natural language, right? So those are going to just be what shows up in the articles. Where you're going to have to reinvent is the subject headings. So going to the thesaurus, searching your key concepts again, and adding those new subject headings in and taking the old ones out. And then the field syntax, right? So in PsycInfo, we've got that like dot, 2 letters dot. In EBSCO, it's a TI, and then that goes outside of the parentheses. On the LibGuide, there's actually a chart that shows you common field tags and what they look like in different databases to hopefully take some of the work out of this for you. Right, so we see like Web of Science, it's TI equals. In EBSCO, it's TI space. PsycInfo, as we just said, is the dot TI dot, right? So that will change. Proximity operators will change, right? So the ADJ3 in PsycInfo would turn into a near/3 in ProQuest. Again, there is a chart in the LibGuide showing you what those look like in different databases to kind of save you some time. So we have 7 minutes and I'm almost done. Yeah. So why don't we try to translate our strategy into one other database just to try to see what that looks like? Would that be helpful? Okay, cool. So I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to pop it down here. And somebody name a database and we will translate it. Nobody has any strong feelings about a database? Oh, ProQuest. Okay, awesome. Yes. So we'll do ProQuest. Let's do Social Science Premium. And the first thing that we need to do is double check our truncation symbols. Let's start there. So I'm just going to go to search tips here and just double check. I might just Google, or not Google, but search truncation. I'm almost positive that it's, yeah. So it is indeed an asterisk, so we don't need to change anything there. We need to get rid of our subject headings, right? So let's go to ProQuest's thesaurus, and I'm going to use the ProQuest thesaurus, not any of those, the sub thesauri. Trauma-informed care. It doesn't look like they have a, yeah, they don't have a subject heading for it. That's okay, that we're just going to leave it out then. We might dig a little bit more if we had more time, but for now, we'll just keep it with no subject heading. Behavioral health. Oops, that was the wrong thesaurus. Okay, we'll just go with behavioral psychology. Again, if I had more time, I would probably like do more sussing out of these, but just to show you how this works. And then lastly, foster care. There we go. All right, add to search. So this is what this looks like in ProQuest. We'll add that. Oops. main subject dot exact foster care and main subject dot exact behavioral psychology. All right, and then the last thing we need to do is replace our proximity operators. So I'm going to go back here and see for ProQuest, we have near slash the number. All right, let's try it. A lot more in this database, which is to be expected, right? Because I didn't apply a field code here. So I would need to apply a field code, but it ran, and that's kind of the first step, right? So again, I'd spend a little longer on the translation. I'd tweak it a little bit more, but that's kind of the basics. Yeah, Lorraine, I'll email out the recording to everybody. Yeah, thank you for being here. All right. Yeah, Natalie.
This might be just kind of specific to my topic, but what if we have kind of a compound topic buckets? So it's not necessarily like a separate variable, like and like then the equation, or not, sorry, the sentence that you showed us at the beginning. But if it's kind of a two-part singular construct, it's not really an and, maybe that's the adjacent idea. I can use exact examples if that was too vague, but
Yeah, I would say it's the adjacent idea then.
Okay.
And you can have like a nested sub-concept within a wider concept in parentheses, you know, we can talk because we have a meeting coming up, don't we? I think we
we
do.
do. I'm
Yeah,
preparing
we
for
can
it,
talk,
yes.
we could talk about it then too. That's the other thing that I want to kind of highlight to everybody is that if you want to run a strategy by me after today, like even if you just want to email it to me, like I love looking at them. So you know, we can't like Natalie just kind of alluded to, we can't kind of cover every instance of like what this looks like, but yeah, I would say like start with the ADJ or the proximity operator and kind of experiment with nesting that within in parentheses within your bigger topic. And we can talk more about that as well. Yeah. I have another question. Oh yeah, Elisa, of course. Yeah. So I think that's it, everybody. We are going to go ahead and just talk real quick about writing your strategies. Basically, there's no best way. You know, some people write it out line by line, as we've seen in some examples. Some people chunk it. Some people kind of separate it willy-nilly. It's not really an exact science. Some people make a table. So whatever works for you. The most important thing is that you put it in your paper when you write your paper, because that's how we get the reproducibility aspect of things, which is the point of a quality systematic review. And lastly, I'll just say, document everything. Put it in your Google Doc, write down how many results you get, write down all your drafts, because you're going to have to make one of these at the end, as you probably are aware of if you've watched the other workshops or been to them. This is what you'll end up making at the end of all of this. So documentation is important. All right, we are going to recap our learning goals. So by the end of today, my goals for everyone were to articulate the building blocks of a search strategy, build advanced search strategies, or be a bit closer to building one, and then recognize transparency and comprehensiveness in a search and why they're important to a review. So how's everybody feeling about those? Feeling all right? Awesome. We covered a ton. So I know, like, again, impossible to cover everything, but the LibGuide is there. I'm here. The slides and all of that will be shared. You're welcome. Yes, Kristen, I will send it right now. The post test. Where is my post test? Yes, and here's my little. There it is. Sorry, everybody. Too many tabs. Yep, so just another quick little survey for everybody. If you wouldn't mind filling that out, and then if folks want to stay on and ask questions as we're doing that, but as soon as you're ready to be done, I'm ready to be done. So I'll hang out here. Please take the post test, but thank you all. This was awesome. Yeah, Jeannie, please feel free to contact me. Yeah, discipline specific questions or systematic review questions, whatever in that realm you like. And if I'm not the person to answer it, I will pass you on to the person that is. But you're in policy, right? So you would be in my liaison area too. So yeah. Sorry, my cat was like yelling the whole time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to
Thanks,
see you
Jeannie.
all. Yeah, I'll see you soon, Natalie.
That's good. See you.
Bye. Thanks, Sage. I'll